It is the latest corruption controversy out of Albany. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara taking a break from the Moreland Commission probe and diving into another investigation. Should Governor Cuomo and some lawmakers in Albany be running scared? He helped steer New York away from a financial meltdown and now says the nation needs rescuing. A warning tonight from former Lieutenant Governor Richard Ravitch, who tells us all about concerns and more in his new book in a one-on-one interview. And the ball is in their court. NBA owners huddling over what to do about the Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, following his racist rant. The NBA hit him with a lifetime ban and a hefty fine, and now is asking the owners to kick him out of the club. Well, tonight, we're going to be talking to a sports attorney to see just how complicated this might be. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us this Thursday evening, May 1st. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, he has subpoenaed the State Ethics Commission. Bharara is reportedly digging through hundreds of past cases filed with the Joint Commission on Public Ethics. A report released last month shows that in 2013, the commission reviewed nearly 200 cases. Most of them were about ethics issues, including potential conflicts of interest, improper gifts, nepotism, post-employment issues. Some other cases may also be involved state lobbying violations and failure to submit proper filings. Reports show there were 21 open investigations and about 70 other matters all set for review. Daily News reporting that the commission's biggest case was, quote, a finding that now former Assemblyman Vito Lopez, shocking, routinely sexually harassed aides. Assembly Speaker went on to say, was criticized for approving a secret $103,000 taxpayer-funded settlement with two victims. All right, let's bring in our panel tonight and get their take on this. Tonight, we're joined by Richard Brodsky, former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now a senior fellow at Demos, professor at NYU, and he loves when I say this, a full member of the media. C. Scott Vanderhoff, an attorney and former Rockland County executive. Andrew Whitman, of course, our senior political correspondent, and Dominic Carter is actually emceeing an event with an organization that we're very close to on this program, the Hudson Link program, and we'll see him here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Okay, let's get into the first issue tonight, what the U.S. Attorney is doing. First of all, what's going on, you think, behind the scenes, Richard? What's Bharara up to?
Well, I don't think anybody knows, but if you're going to speculate, which I hate to do as a journalist,
yes.
I think there are two explanations. One, he wants to look at the cases to make sure that where there were cases that would have been followed through on, they're followed through on. The second explanation is that he's looking to see if there was interference with any of the cases that were brought, or if some were shunted aside that shouldn't have been shunted aside.
And if there was, and we don't know that there is, but if any interference took place, it could really only happen, I guess, at senior levels of the legislature or even with the governor, right?
Well, I don't think there's been any suggestion that members of the legislature had any ability to interfere. As with the Moreland Commission, the publicity there, you saw there was a concern that members of the governor's staff were either directing or quashing subpoenas. That if that also, if it happened, and if it included saying to somebody, leave that one alone, or why don't you go after that guy, then I think the U.S. Attorney would have an interest. So it's either he's following up on some good work or he's following up on some bad work, and no one knows.
But keep in mind the context that Bharara is issuing these subpoenas. He was critical of Governor Cuomo for ending the Moreland Commission in the manner that he did, and seemed to indicate that he was at least he thought it was a little suspect, the manner in which that happened. So one senses that he's looking to see if there is anything that needs tidying up when it comes to corruption in Albany, and that could have potentially damaging consequences if he finds anything.
Well, I think what's interesting is the governor's response at this point. It's my commission. I can do what I want with it. It's almost like by extension, he can interfere with the investigation of the commission. I'm not suggesting he did,
right.
But that very comment, that is my commission, I get to decide, may be telling us something more about what happened.
Eventually I'm going to come out where I think you come out, but I think there's a worthy legal point to make. If it was just the Moreland Commission, it was his commission. And he does have the ability to say this, this, and this. The problem for the governor is that what was called the Moreland Commission was also an Attorney General's commission. There was a referral about the corruption because Moreland Act commissions can only look at the executive branch, and the governor was using this as a stick over the legislature. If he interfered with his own commission, If he interfered with the Attorney General's work, I think then the point you make is a good one.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that's very important and that's where I think the governor has made a mistake. This is a criminal look at investigation because it involves the Attorney General, because it involves district attorneys across the state, and any good elected official is arm's length on a criminal investigation, however superficial or preliminarily. So he's got a real problem here in that respect. So you can't, you can say it's my commission, but when it's a Moreland Act commission investigating criminal behavior, it's a different kind of standard, I think.
And I come at this from one other aspect. I know some folks who've worked with Ms. Bharara in the past, and everything I get is this isn't somebody who goes on fishing expeditions for the fun of it. He's got ambitions, many think here, beyond his existing office. He wouldn't go down this road unless he thought that there was something he was going to find. So to that end, he is, I think, duly incentivized, more out of than just public good here. If he's going to be so public about where he's going, and he's going to definitely make an enemy of the governor in the process in this, there better be a payoff at the end. So I think, as we say in TV, stay tuned. Okay, teachers in New York, they are getting a raise. Today, the city reached a new 9-year contract deal with the UFT. The deal they hammered out involves a 4% retroactive pay hike that goes back to 2009 when the last contract expired. Teachers will also receive a total pay raise of about 10%, but that's by 2018. Go to 2019, their pay will be about 18% higher than it was in 2009. A piece in the Times says other municipal unions were weighing in with complaints that the raises, which will probably set a pattern for the other unions, were too small and should be higher. End of the day, Richard, were you surprised by the deal, or was this going to be the best amount of deal with a limited pool of revenue that this mayor had to play with?
Both. The deal at 2% a year, roughly for nine years, is stability. It's a little less than inflation, and there are givebacks. The realities are the city can't give the kind of raises it gave historically, and the reality is that Mayor Bloomberg left this mess for the first thing for Bill de Blasio to handle. It's a fairly good outcome for both sides. I think it's probably going to survive. The real question is, are the health givebacks going to survive for the other unions? And that's...
Historically, is this deal the template for, I mean, there was 9 contracts this mayor had to resolve. I think he's still got 7 left on his plate. Does this set the template for what everybody else gets?
I think the TWU deal, which was announced 2 weeks ago, did that.
Yeah.
The city was looking for 000 retroactively. Didn't get that. I think that was made impossible by Governor Cuomo's insistence on the raise levels that the TWU got. Look, the affordability is a real problem here. This is probably affordable, we'll see. But let's remember that these teachers are making, when they start, $40,000. I don't know how you live in the city of New York and raise a family on $40,000 a year. I am not outraged by the notion that teachers, firefighters, and the rest get pay raises. Affordability is the key issue. And I think this strikes me as a fairly good compromise.
Have you seen how this has been pitched yet, or at least sold outside? Is the union getting behind this as a victory, or they said this is the best we could do?
No, so far it appears as though the victory is, or that the union is viewing this as a victory. I think there's been a little concern from other unions around the city, and I think Richard was absolutely right in not just the money and whether that serves as a model for the other union negotiations that de Blasio still has to go through, but also the givebacks, which were somewhat substantial in terms of medical coverage and picking up some of the costs for the medical coverage. The real, as you said, the real way this plays out and the real way it's measured isn't by this deal. It's whether this deal is modeled and if the city can afford that model for the other remaining big contracts that are up.
Scott, we mentioned the governor before. I'm curious your take on this one. Governor Cuomo facing some criticism tonight, in certain corners at least, because he reached out to Google CEO Eric Schmidt for financial advice. And in and of itself, that's not the problem. But apparently, the governor sought advice from Schmidt on how he should spend $2 billion when it comes to school technology. Critics say, time out. Google's chief shouldn't be involved in that project because his company, without having to stretch, too many possibilities, could actually benefit from this. They're not that they're cut out from eligibility for getting some of these contracts. You have a problem with that, or is he just reaching out to the best and brightest for the smartest way to spend the money?
No, I think it's the latter, and I think it's the action, the actual action in a contractual agreement that you're concerned about. But executives need to reach out to people with knowledge and to get their thoughts. It doesn't mean that there's any thing that's wrong with it. Obviously, you reach out to one, but you have to allow others to participate in any kind of a final agreement. So I really don't have a problem with that. And one has to remember that executives in that position often reach out to people, particularly in the financial. Dick Ravitch was one of those folks. I mean, it wasn't a conflict perhaps as much in that case, but it is a natural thing to reach out, especially in financial matters, to people who know.
I think it's easy to say that, and I don't think you're wrong, Scott, but what happens when this guy then bids on the contract that seems to favor the technology that he might have advised the governor on? There are pitfalls here that the governor should have been aware of.
Doesn't it happen more often than the public thinks?
This sort of idiotic failure to abide by appearances all the time. I don't think this amounts to the end of the world. I don't think the governor did anything remotely corrupt, but I think if you're going to make the case that ethics matter and that appearance matters, and it matters when some idiot steals $40,000, well, it matters when you're letting contracts for $200 million, $400 million, and better he should have found some other brilliant executive who wasn't a potential bidder on these contracts.
Okay, coming up next here, former Lieutenant Governor Richard Ravitch, of whom Mr. Brodsky calls a friend, sat down with his old Albany buddy about his new memoir, where he covers a career that has really spanned so much and a career that isn't done yet. We're going to have that conversation right after this.